I gave her everything. I built her family a house. I paid for her mother's surgery. I put her brother through business school. And when the money dried up, so did she. This is how $450,000 disappeared in Thailand, and how I became a stranger in the home I paid for. I wish I could tell you this was a simple mistake, or that I was blind, but it was worse than that. It was a conscious choice I made, every single day, to believe the fantasy over the facts. I'm sitting here now, the room completely silent, and the guilt feels physical, like cold water pooling in my chest. I've been carrying this story, heavy and toxic, for years. The dam finally broke yesterday. I was sorting through my junk folder, the usual clutter, when I saw a subject line that made my breath hitch. Your story saved me. It was from a viewer named Chloe. She explained that she'd been watching the channel for the last year and felt a kinship with my voice, my vulnerability. She detailed her own experience of financial and emotional manipulation, ending the message with a fragile question. Did you ever feel like you were the only one who didn't see the trap? When I read that, the isolation I'd felt for so long just evaporated. My hands were shaking. First, there was this sharp, stinging recognition, a sudden jolt of shared pain that made me feel less foolish. Then came a deep, profound sorrow for Chloe and everyone else caught in this web. But the last feeling, the most important one, was a powerful release. Chloe's courage in asking that question gave me the permission I needed to finally answer it myself, out loud, for all of you. This story is complex, messy, and frankly, embarrassing. But before I dive in, if you're finding value in these confessions, please hit the like button right now. Comment below and tell me what time of day it is where you are. It's comforting to know we're sharing this moment across the world, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I have to take a moment for a real, deep thank you. Every comment, every view, every single person who comes back for the next video, you are the community that makes sharing this pain worthwhile. You turn a wound into a lesson, and I genuinely appreciate that more than I can say. Tonight, I'm not holding anything back. This is the truth, told in the dark, just between us. Let me take you back to the place where the silence began. I was sitting on the balcony of that beachfront villa in Hua Hin when I realized I was happy again. Actually happy. Not pretending. Not going through the motions. Waranya was in the kitchen wearing that silk robe I'd bought her in Bangkok, humming something soft while she made coffee. The morning sun caught her hair just right. She looked back at me and smiled. "You want papaya with breakfast?" she asked. I nodded. I couldn't stop smiling like an idiot. At 68 years old, I thought those days were behind me. I thought I'd used up my quota of feeling alive. My wife Maria died 3 years before I met Waranya. Cancer took her in 6 months. One day she was complaining about back pain. The next day, we were in an oncologist's office listening to words like stage 4 and palliative care. After the funeral, my kids went back to their lives. My son Carlos in Houston called once a month. My daughter Sophia sent birthday texts. That was it. I had money. I had a big empty house in Guadalajara. I had business partners who'd all retired and moved to Florida or Arizona. I was wealthy and completely hollow. Then I took that tour to Chiang Mai. I almost didn't go. I booked it on a whim after too much whiskey one night, thinking maybe a change of scenery would help. That's where I met her, Waranya. She was the tour guide's assistant, helping elderly tourists like me navigate the temples and markets. She was 35, which I knew was too young, but she had this warmth about her. She asked me questions, real questions. "What did you do in Mexico?" she said while we walked through Doisethep. "Were you happy there?" Not one person had asked me that in years. I told her about my export business, about Maria, about how my kids were too busy for the old man. She listened. She didn't check her phone. She didn't look bored. When I made a terrible joke about Thai food being spicier than Mexican, she laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one. At the night market, she took my hand to guide me through the crowd. "So you don't get lost," she said. Her hand was small and warm in mine. I felt something I thought was dead. That week in Chiang Mai changed everything. On the last day, I asked her, "Can I see you again?" She looked surprised. "You want to see me?" she said. "Why not someone younger? Someone from your country?" I told her the truth. "Because you're the first person in 3 years who made me feel like I'm still here." She kissed my cheek. "I would like that," she said. "I would like that very much." We started slow. Video calls every night. I'd wake up early in Guadalajara just to catch her before she went to work in Bangkok, where she'd moved for a hotel job. She'd show me her tiny apartment, laugh about her terrible neighbors, ask about my day. "Did you eat properly?" she'd say. "You need to take care of yourself, Garrett." No one had said that to me in so long. After 2 months, I flew back to Thailand. I rented a condo in Bangkok for 3 months. She stayed over most nights. We cooked together. We watched Thai dramas I didn't understand while she translated and laughed at my confused face. We took weekend trips to the islands. On a beach in Koh Samet, she rested her head on my shoulder and said, "I never thought I could feel safe with someone." I kissed her forehead. "You are safe," I told her. "I promise you that." I meant it. I wanted to protect her from everything. I wanted to be the man who fixed things for her. That's when she started talking about her family. Not asking for anything, just sharing. "My mother is alone in Udon, Thani," she said one night. "My father died when I was 12. She raised me and my brother by herself. She's sick now, diabetes. But she won't complain. She never complains." I could hear the sadness in her voice. "Would you like me to meet her?" I asked. Waranya looked at me with those wide eyes. "You would do that?" she said. "You would come to my village?" I laughed. "Of course I would. I want to know the people who made you." She cried a little. Happy tears. She held my face in her hands. "You are so different from Thai men," she said. "You have a good heart." 2 weeks later, we took the train to Udon Thani. I was nervous. My own kids barely tolerated me. And now I was meeting the family of a Thai woman 33 years younger than me. What would they think? Would they see me as a creepy old Farang with too much money and not enough sense? Waranya held my hand the whole way. "Don't worry," she kept saying. "They will love you." Her family lived in a small wooden house on the edge of town, chickens in the yard, clothes drying on a line. A spirit house in the corner decorated with flowers and incense. Her mother, May Noi, came out to greet us. She was tiny, maybe 4'10", with gray hair pulled back and a smile that reminded me of Maria's mother. She pressed her palms together in a Y and said something in Thai. Waranya translated. She says, "Welcome to our home. She's honored you came." I weighed back, probably doing it wrong, but May Noi giggled and patted my arm. Her brother Somchai came out next. He was maybe 40, stocky, wearing a polo shirt with a phone repair shop logo. He shook my hand firmly. "Welcome, sir," he said in careful English. "My sister talks about you very much." We sat on floor mats in their small living room. They brought out som tam, sticky rice, grilled chicken, and more food than 3 people could eat. May Noi kept putting more on my plate, smiling every time I took a bite. Somchai asked me about Mexico, about my business, about what I thought of Thailand. It felt warm. It felt like family, real family, the kind that actually wants you there. Waranya sat close to me, translating when things got complicated, squeezing my hand under the table. At one point, May Noi said something long and emotional. Waranya's eyes got wet. "What did she say?" I asked. "She said you have a kind heart. She said she can see you care about me. She said she prays I find happiness after everything I've been through." I didn't ask what everything meant. I just nodded. After dinner, Somchai mentioned his phone repair shop. "Business is difficult now," he said. "Big companies like Apple, they make it hard for small shops. I try to compete, but..." He shrugged. May Noi added something in Thai. Waranya hesitated, then translated. "She's saying her medical bills are high. The diabetes medicine, the doctor visits. It's expensive. But she doesn't want us to worry. I felt something shift inside me. These people had nothing, and they were sharing what little they had with a stranger. With me. How much are the medical bills? I asked. Waranya shook her head. Garrett, no. We didn't bring you here for money. We just wanted you to meet them. But I could see it in her eyes, the worry, the weight. How much? I asked again. She looked at Somchai. He looked uncomfortable. Maybe 90,000 baht, he said quietly. About $3,000, I think. $3,000. I'd spent more than that on a watch I never wore. I'll take care of it, I said. Waranya's eyes went wide. Garrett, you don't have to. I want to, I said. Your mother took care of you your whole life. Let me help her now. May Noi didn't understand English, but she understood my tone. She started crying. She took my hands and said something over and over. She's thanking you, Waranya whispered. She's saying you're a blessing. That night, lying on a thin mattress in Waranya's childhood bedroom, she curled against me. You made my mother so happy today, she said. I've never seen her cry like that. I stroked her hair. I'm glad I could help. She kissed my chest. I love you, Garrett, she said. It was the first time she'd said it. I love you too, I said, and I meant it. For the first time since Maria died, I felt needed. I felt like I mattered. 3 months later, Waranya moved into my rented condo in Bangkok. It happened naturally. She was staying over most nights anyway, keeping a toothbrush in my bathroom, leaving clothes in my closet. One morning I just said, "Why don't you move in properly?" She smiled. "You sure you want an old lady like me taking up your space?" I pulled her close. "You're not old, and I want you here, always." She moved in that weekend. We fell into a routine. She'd go to her hotel job in the mornings. I'd read, walk the neighborhood, video call with my kids when they had time. She'd come home around 6 and we'd cook together. It was simple. It was peaceful. It was everything I'd been missing. Then Somchai called. It was a Thursday evening. Waranya answered and immediately switched to Thai. I could tell from her face something was happening. She talked fast, asked questions, went quiet. When she hung up, she looked troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked. She sat down heavily. "Somchai says there's family land for sale in Udon, Thani. 2 Rai, near where the new highway is being built. It belonged to my uncle, but he needs money fast. He's selling it cheap." I waited. "My family wants to buy it," she continued. "Somchai says if we build a guest house there, we could rent rooms to tourists, make steady income, help my mother, but they don't have the money." I could see where this was going. "How much?" I asked. She looked at me carefully. "The land is 2 million baht, about $60,000. But with legal fees, maybe 80,000 total. $80,000, not a small amount, but not impossible either." "What do you think?" I asked her. She shook her head. "I think it's a big decision. I don't want you to feel pressure. This is my family's problem, not yours." But the way she said it, I could tell she wanted me to help. She wanted this to work. And honestly, I wanted it too. I wanted to be the man who solved problems, who made things happen. "Let me think about it," I said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that land, about building something permanent in Thailand, a place Waranya and I could retire to, a place her family could depend on, a legacy. The next morning, Somchai showed up at our condo. Waranya looked surprised. "I didn't know he was coming," she said. Somchai had brought papers, maps, photos of the land. "This is very good location," he said, spreading everything on our dining table. "Highway brings many tourists. Guest house will fill every week. Good business." He showed me projected earnings, charts, numbers that looked impressive. "How much could we make annually?" I asked. He calculated quickly. If 10 rooms, average booking, maybe $30,000 profit per year. After 5 years, investment fully returned. It sounded reasonable. Smart, even. I looked at Waranya. She was biting her lip. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. But I could see the hope in her eyes. "What if I said yes?" I asked. Her face lit up. "Really?" "Really," I said. "But I want to see the land first, and I want proper legal documents." Somchai nodded eagerly. Of course. Very professional. I handle everything. You just visit land, see it's good, then we process paperwork properly." Waranya hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. This will change everything for my family." That weekend, we drove to Udon, Thani. The land was beautiful. 2 rai of flat ground with trees around the edges, a view of rice fields, and yes, you could see the new highway construction in the distance. Somchai walked me around, pointing out property lines, explaining where the guest house would go, where parking would be. "This is perfect location," he kept saying. "Perfect for business." I could picture it. A small resort, rooms with balconies, a restaurant, maybe a pool eventually. Waranya and I sitting on a porch watching the sunset, growing old together in a place we built. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." The paperwork happened fast. Maybe too fast. But I trusted Waranya, and I trusted that she trusted her brother. Somchai brought documents to a lawyer in Udon, Thani. I signed where he told me to sign. The lawyer spoke minimal English, but Somchai translated. He says everything is in order. Land will be registered properly. You're making good investment. I wired $80,000 from my bank in Mexico. The money hit Somchai's account in 3 days. He showed me the receipt. "Land is ours now," he said, shaking my hand. "Now we start building." Waranya cried happy tears that night. "You've given my family a future," she said. "How can I ever repay you?" I kissed her. "You don't repay love," I told her. "You just live it." Construction started within a month. Somchai hired his cousin Krit to oversee everything. Krit was younger, maybe 30, with a weathered face and cement dust permanently in his hair. "I build houses for 15 years, he told me in broken English. "Your guest house will be strong, beautiful." The budget Krit presented was detailed. Materials, labor, permits, utilities. It came to $120,000. I felt my stomach drop. "I thought we said 80,000, I said. Somchai looked uncomfortable. "That was just land cost. Building is separate. But don't worry. When guest house opens, we make money back quickly." I looked at Waranya. She touched my arm. "It's your choice, Garrett. We can build smaller, fewer rooms, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'd already come this far, and backing out now would mean wasting the 80,000 on empty land." "Fine," I said. 120. I wired the money in 2 installments. Waranya seemed quieter after that, more distant. She spent hours on her phone, talking to Krit and Somchai, just coordinating construction, she'd say when I asked, making sure everything goes smoothly. I visited the site every few weeks, watching foundations get poured, walls going up, a roof taking shape. It was real. It was happening. But every visit, Krit had news. Cement prices went up, inflation, you understand. Need 15,000 more. Or laborers demanding higher wages, strike threatened. Need 20,000 to keep them working. Or permit office wants bribe, normal in Thailand, 10,000 should cover. The costs kept climbing. I wired 60,000 more over 4 months. Every time, Waranya would say, "I'm so sorry. This is more than we expected. You can stop any time." But stopping meant losing everything I'd already put in. So I kept paying. Then Mainoi got sick, really sick. Waranya got the call late one night. She was crying before she even hung up. "What happened?" I asked. My mother, she collapsed. They took her to hospital in Udon, Thani. Her diabetes is worse. Doctor says she needs surgery. My chest tightened. What kind of surgery? I don't know the English word. Something with her kidneys. They're failing. She was shaking. How much will it cost? She looked at me with desperate eyes. Doctor says 400,000 baht, about $15,000. But we don't have it. The guest house took everything. I didn't hesitate. I'll wire it tomorrow. She collapsed against me. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. She's your mother. The money went through. May Noi got her surgery. She recovered slowly but survived. Waranya was so grateful she could barely speak. But after that, I started noticing things. She was on her phone constantly, always, turned away from me. When I'd walk into a room, she'd quickly close messaging apps. Who are you talking to? I'd ask. Just coordinating with Crit, construction stuff. But her tone was off, defensive. Then Somchai's shop flooded. Monsoon rains, apparently. He called Waranya crying. His entire inventory was ruined. Insurance wouldn't cover it. How much does he need? I asked, already knowing I'd pay. 25,000, Waranya said quietly, to replace stock and repair damage. But Garrett, I know this is too much. I know you've already done so much. I was so deep now. What was another 25,000? I'd already invested over $300,000. I couldn't let it all fall apart because Somchai's shop flooded. The money went through. But something changed in Waranya after that. She kissed me less. She stayed up late on her phone. She was always tired. Are you okay? I'd ask. I'm fine, she'd say, just stressed about the guest house. But when I tried to hold her at night, she'd turn away. I'm not feeling well, she'd say. Or, I'm too tired. I told myself it was the stress, the family pressure. Once the guest house was done, everything would go back to normal. But deep down, I was starting to feel something cold in my stomach, something that whispered I'd made a terrible mistake. I showed up at the construction site unannounced on a Tuesday morning. I told Waranya I had a meeting in Bangkok, but I drove straight to Udon, Thani instead. Something didn't feel right. The costs kept rising. The receipts Crit showed me looked rushed and vague. I needed to see it for myself. The guest house was stunning. I'll give them that. 2 stories, 10 rooms, beautiful Thai-style peaked roofs, dark wood balconies. It looked like something from a travel magazine. Crit was there, talking to workers. When he saw me, his face went pale. Kun Garrett, he said, using the Thai honorific. I didn't know you were coming. Surprise visit, I said. Thought I'd check on progress. He laughed nervously. Everything good. Almost finished. Maybe 2 more weeks. I walked around the property. The rooms were beautiful. Teak furniture, tile bathrooms, air conditioning units installed. It must have cost a fortune. But something felt wrong. The workers avoided eye contact. Crit kept hovering near me, talking too much. Where's the budget breakdown? I asked. I want to see receipts for materials and labor. Crit's smile faltered. Oh, is at my office. I bring next time. Why not now? Your office is in town, right? Let's drive there together. He shifted his weight. Actually, everything is on computer. Computer broken right now. Virus. I stared at him. Your computer has a virus. Yes. Very bad. I take to repair shop tomorrow. I didn't believe him. Not for a second. That night, I went through the documents Somchai had given me when we bought the land. The deed, the contracts, the registration papers. I spread them all on the hotel bed. Everything was in Thai. I'd signed them trusting Waranya to translate. But now I looked closer. I used my phone to photograph key sections and ran them through translation apps. The land deed had Somchai's name on it, not mine. My name appeared nowhere. I felt like I'd been punched. I called Waranya immediately. Where are you? I asked. At the condo. Why? Are you okay? I need to talk to you. Now. I'm coming back to Bangkok. I drove through the night, my hands shaking on the wheel. I kept thinking about that deed, about Somchai's name where mine should have been. When I got to the condo at 3 a.m, Waranya was awake, pacing. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Why did you drive all night?" I threw the deed on the table. "Explain this to me. Why is Somchai's name on the land deed?" Her face went pale. "Garrett, why is my name not on the property I paid for?" She started crying. "I wanted to tell you. I tried to tell you." "Tell me what?" "Foreigners can't own land in Thailand. It's the law. So Somchai holds it in trust for you. It's normal. All foreigners do this." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. "Show me the trust document then," I said. She froze. "What trust document? If he's holding it in trust, there should be legal paperwork, a contract, something that says he's holding it for me." She looked away. "Somchai handles all that. I don't have copies." I felt sick, actually physically sick. "You're telling me I've paid over $300,000 for land that legally belongs to your brother, and there's no document protecting me?" She grabbed my hands. "Garrett, please. You have to trust me. Somchai would never cheat you. He's my brother. This is for our future." "Our future?" I pulled away. "What future? You barely look at me anymore. You're always on your phone. You turn away when I try to touch you." She was crying harder now. "That's not fair. I've been stressed. The construction, my mother's health, my brother's shop, all paid for with my money," I said. The words came out cold, cruel, but true. She slapped me. I didn't see it coming. My cheek stung. "How dare you?" she said. "I gave you everything. I left my job to be with you. I introduced you to my family. I made you feel alive again. And now you think I'm some kind of prostitute?" "I didn't say that." "You meant it." She grabbed her purse. "I'm staying with a friend tonight. When you remember why you fell in love with me, call me." She left. I sat in the empty condo, holding my burning cheek, wondering what the hell I'd done. I wanted to call her back, to apologize, to believe everything she said. But my old friend Eduardo in Guadalajara was a lawyer. I called him at 4 a.m, his time. "Garrett? What's wrong?" "I need legal advice. About property in Thailand." I explained everything. The land purchase, Somchai's name on the deed, the lack of trust documents. Eduardo was quiet for a long time. "Amigo," he finally said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but you've been played." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "If your name isn't on the deed and there's no legal trust agreement, you own nothing. You've given them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you have no legal claim to any of it." I felt my world collapse. There has to be something I can do. You can sue, but Thai courts favor Thai nationals. And if you have no written agreements that specify your ownership, you'll lose. I've seen this happen to clients before. Foreign men who fall in love with Thai women, invest in property, and end up with nothing. I hung up. I sat there until sunrise, staring at nothing. When Waranya came back the next afternoon, her eyes were red. "I'm sorry I hit you," she said quietly. "That was wrong." I looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman I'd fallen in love with in Chiang Mai. The woman who'd made me feel alive. "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you know I wouldn't legally own the land?" She sat down, slowly. "Yes." The word hung in the air. I knew. "But Garrett, I promise you, it's not what you think. My brother would never cheat you. This is just how things work here. You have to trust me." "I did trust you," I said. "I gave you everything." She crawled onto the couch next to me, put her head on my shoulder. "I love you," she whispered. "Please don't give up on us because of paperwork. The land is yours. The guest house is ours. Nothing changes that." I wanted to believe her. I wanted it so badly, so I did something stupid. I let it go. I wrapped my arm around her and told myself Eduardo didn't understand, that this was different, that Waranya wouldn't do that to me. That night, when she curled up against me whispering, "I love you," over and over, I convinced myself everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew I'd been played. I was just too ashamed to admit it. I met Mr. Tanaka by accident. I was sitting at a small bar near our construction site, drinking a beer and trying to convince myself everything would work out. He sat down next to me, ordered whiskey, and said in perfect English, "You're building the guest house down the road." I looked at him. Japanese, maybe early 70s, gray hair, kind eyes behind thick glasses. "How did you know?" He smiled sadly. "I watch all the foreign men who build things here. It's like watching myself 10 years ago." Something in his voice made me stay. "What happened 10 years ago?" He sipped his whiskey. "I fell in love with a Thai woman. Beautiful girl, 20 years younger. Her family was poor. She made me feel young again. You know the story already, don't you?" I nodded slowly. He continued. "I bought them land, built them a house, paid for her mother's medical care, her brother's business, her sister's wedding. 8 million yen over 3 years. About $80,000. My stomach dropped. What happened? One day, the money ran out. I'd retired. My pension wasn't enough to keep giving. She became cold, distant. Then one morning, she was gone. Took everything valuable from my apartment. I went to the house I'd built, and her brother told me I wasn't welcome anymore. He laughed, but it sounded broken. I had nothing. No legal claim, no proof. Just receipts that meant nothing. I felt like I was looking into my future. How did you survive? Barely. I moved to this cheaper area. I live on almost nothing. I can't go back to Japan. Too ashamed. Too broke. So I stay here, watching other men make the same mistakes I did." He looked at me directly. "They're professionals. They don't see it as lying. They see it as survival. You're not a person to them. You're an opportunity." I wanted to defend Waranya, to say she was different, but the words stuck in my throat. "She loves me," I finally said. Tanaka smiled sadly. "That's what I said too." He paid for his drink and mine. Before leaving, he said, "When it ends, and it will end, remember you're not the first, and you won't be the last. Don't die here full of shame. That's the only advice I have." I sat there for another hour. When I got back to the condo, Waranya was on her phone in the bedroom. I stood in the doorway, watching her. She was typing fast, smiling at something on her screen. When she noticed me, the smile vanished. She closed the app quickly. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked. "Long enough. Who were you talking to?" "Crit. About the guest house." But she'd switched apps too fast. I'd seen the Line Messenger logo. Not a business chat, something else. "Can I see?" She looked offended. "Why? You don't trust me?" "Should I?" The question hung there. She stood up, holding her phone protectively. "I'm going to take a shower." While the water ran, I did something I'm not proud of. I used her iPad, which was logged into her Line account. I opened her messages with Somchai. My Thai reading was terrible, but Google Translate on my phone helped. The most recent messages made my blood run cold. Somchai. Is he asking about the deed? Waranya. Yes. He found out his name's not on it. Somchai. What did you tell him? Waranya. That foreigners can't own land, that you're holding it in trust. Somchai. Did he believe you? Waranya. I think so. He's so desperate to believe me. But we need to finish the house fast. I don't know how much longer I can keep him happy. Somchai. How much more money does he have? Waranya. Maybe another 100,000. But he's getting suspicious. I might need to end things after the house is done. I felt like I'd been shot. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the iPad. The shower turned off. I put the iPad back, walked out to the balcony. I couldn't breathe. She came out in a towel 20 minutes later. "Are you coming to bed?" she asked. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved. This woman I'd given everything to. "I'm tired," I said. "I'll sleep out here." She shrugged and went to bed. I sat on that balcony until sunrise, watching the Bangkok skyline, feeling completely hollow. I should have confronted her, should have packed my bags and left, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by shame, by the knowledge that everyone had warned me and I hadn't listened, by the fear that if I walked away now, I'd lose everything I'd invested. So I did nothing. I just sat there in the dark, broken. The guest house opened on a Saturday in November. Waranya's family threw a huge party. They'd invited half of Udon Thani, it seemed. Neighbors, local officials, business owners, monks who came to bless the building, tables full of food, music playing from huge speakers. Everyone was drinking and laughing. I stood near the entrance, wearing the Thai shirt Waranya had bought me. People kept approaching, thanking me in Thai. Somchai was working the crowd, shaking hands, playing the successful businessman. He saw me and walked over with a beer. "Great day, yes?" he said, smiling wide. "This is because of you, Kun Garrett. You made this happen." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I just nodded. Waranya was surrounded by her relatives, laughing, taking photos. She barely looked at me. When she did, it was with an empty smile, polite, distant, like I was a stranger. At one point, Somchai gave a speech. Everyone gathered around. He spoke in Thai for 5 minutes, and people kept glancing at me, nodding, raising their glasses. When he finished, everyone applauded. "What did he say?" I asked Waranya later. She hesitated. "He thanked everyone for coming. He talked about family working together. He mentioned generous friends who helped make this possible." "Friends?" I said. "Not me specifically?" She looked uncomfortable. "He thanked you, just not by name. It's more humble that way, Thai culture. But I knew the truth. I wasn't the boyfriend. I wasn't the partner. I was the sponsor. The walking ATM who'd funded everything and would now be quietly erased. The party went until midnight. I watched Waranya drink and dance with her cousins. She looked happy, genuinely happy, happier than I'd seen her in months. When we finally left, driving back to the hotel we were staying at, she was drunk and giggly. "That was fun," she said. "Everyone loved it." "Did you have fun?" she asked. "Sure," I lied. Back in the hotel room, she passed out almost immediately. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her. She was beautiful even in sleep. I thought about Chiang Mai, about the woman who'd held my hand in the night market, who'd asked me if I was happy. I wanted to believe that woman was real, that some part of what we had was real. But I couldn't anymore. The next morning, she was cold, sober, and quiet. We drove back to Bangkok in near silence. When we got to the condo, I finally asked, "What are we? Waranya?" She looked at me blankly. "What do you mean?" "I mean us. This. Are we building a future? Are we partners? Or am I just the guy who paid for everything?" She sighed, like I was being difficult. "I'm tired, Garrett. I don't want to do this now." "When then?" she snapped. "I don't know. I'm exhausted. The last 6 months have been hell. Coordinating construction, dealing with my mother's health, managing my brother's business problems, keeping you happy. I'm burned out." "Keeping me happy?" I repeated. "Is that what this has been? A job?" She grabbed her purse. "I need space. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days." "Waranya." She held up her hand. "Don't. Just don't. I'll call you when I'm ready." She left. She didn't come back in a few days. She didn't come back at all. A week passed. Then 2. I called. She didn't answer. I texted. She replied once. "I need time." Then nothing. After 3 weeks, she finally called. Her voice was flat, detached. "I'm moving to Udon Thani," she said. "What? Why?" "To help manage the guest house. Somchai needs me there." My mother needs me there. What about us? Silence. Then, Garrett, you're a good man. You helped my family so much. I'll always be grateful. That's not what I asked. More silence. I think we want different things, she finally said. You want someone to take care of. I need to take care of my family. It's not fair to either of us to keep pretending. I felt my chest tighten. Pretending? I care about you. I do. But I think this relationship ran its course. After everything I did for you? The words came out bitter. She laughed, actually laughed. There it is. You helped my family, and now you think I owe you. That's not love, Garrett. That's a transaction. I loved you, I said. Did you? She asked quietly. Or did you love having someone need you? Did you love me? Or did you love playing hero? I couldn't answer. She continued, softer now. You're a good man, but I can't be what you need. I can't fix your loneliness. I can't replace your wife. I have my own life, my own problems. I'm sorry. So that's it? I said. You just leave? I think it's better this way. Clean. No. Drama. I paid for everything, I said. The land, the house, your mother's surgery, your brother's shop. That's not nothing. Her voice went cold. And I gave you 6 months of my life. I made you feel loved when you were dying of loneliness. We're even. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling like my chest had caved in. She'd reduced everything to a transaction, and maybe she was right. Maybe that's all it ever was. I hired lawyer Preacha a week later. He had an office in Bangkok near the business district. Small, cluttered, files stacked everywhere. He was maybe 50, gray at the temples, wearing reading glasses on a chain. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. The land purchase, the construction costs, the medical bills, the shop repairs, every dollar I'd wired, every promise I'd believed. He took notes, asked questions, stayed neutral. When I finished, he sat back. How much total? He asked. I'd done the math 100 times. $450,000. Maybe more. I'd have to check my bank records. He whistled low. That's substantial. Can I get it back? He looked at me with tired eyes. Do you want the truth or false hope? The truth. He pulled out a folder. I did some checking after you called. The land in Udon, Thani was purchased by Somchai 2 years ago for 800,000 baht. About $30,000. He sold it to himself through a shell transaction for 2 million baht, making it look like an arm's-length deal. The deed has his name only. No trust agreement exists. No written contract between you and the family. My stomach dropped. What about construction costs? I had an associate do a quiet appraisal. The guest house cost approximately $150,000 to build. You paid over $200,000 for construction alone. The difference was likely pocketed. I felt sick. May noise surgery? A routine procedure covered by Thailand's universal health care with minimal copay. The hospital has no record of a 400,000 baht charge. She likely paid less than 50,000 baht out of pocket. The shop repair? There was a flood. Minor. Insurance covered most. Receipts show about $5,000 in damages, not $25,000. I couldn't breathe. Every dollar I'd given them was inflated, exaggerated, or completely fabricated. I gave them $450,000, I said quietly, and they played me for every cent. Preacha nodded. I'm sorry, Kun Garrett. This is more common than you think. Foreign men, lonely, wealthy, meet younger Thai women. The women introduce them to family problems. The men want to help, to feel needed. The family exploits that. It's a system. They've done it before. They'll do it again. Can I sue? He hesitated. You can try, but you have no written contracts. No proof that any promises were made. You voluntarily transferred money. Thai courts will see it as gifts. Somchai legally. owns the land. You have no claim. What about fraud? Fraud requires proof of intentional deception. Waranya can claim she genuinely cared for you, that her family's problems were real, just more expensive than anticipated, that you volunteered to help out of love. It becomes he said, she said. And in Thai courts, the Thai national usually wins. I felt hollow, completely hollow. So I have nothing. You have receipts. You have bank records. You have your story. But legally, he shook his head. You have nothing. I paid him for his time and walked out into Bangkok traffic. I felt numb. I'd worked 40 years building a business in Mexico. I'd saved carefully. I'd invested wisely. And in less than a year, I'd lost nearly $500,000 to a woman who never loved me and a family that saw me as a retirement fund. I went back to the condo. I looked at the photos on my phone. Waranya smiling at the temple. Waranya holding my hand on the beach. Waranya asleep in my bed. I thought about deleting them. But I couldn't, because even now, even knowing the truth, part of me wanted to believe some of it was real. I opened Line. I typed out a message, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Finally, I just wrote, I know what you did. I know it was never real. I don't hate you. I hate that I let myself believe it. I hope the house brings your family happiness. I hope it was worth it. I sent it. She read it within minutes. The little check marks turned blue, but she never replied. I sat there for an hour, staring at my phone, waiting for something. An apology, an explanation, anything. Nothing came. I booked a flight to Guadalajara the next day. When I landed, my son Carlos picked me up. You're back early, he said. Thought you'd stay in Thailand longer. I shrugged. Change of plans. He didn't push it. My kids knew I'd gone to Thailand. They knew I'd met someone. But they didn't know about the money. They didn't know about the house. They didn't know their father had been played for a fool by a woman 33 years younger. I couldn't tell them. The shame was too heavy. I moved back into my house in Guadalajara. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. Maria's photos still on the walls, my home office untouched. It felt like a museum, a shrine to a life that didn't exist anymore. I thought about Waranya every day. I thought about Somchai counting my money, about May Noi who probably laughed at the stupid old Farang, about Crit who pocketed construction funds. I thought about Mr. Tanaka's warning, about how I'd defended Waranya, about how certain I'd been that I was different. I wasn't different. I was exactly the same, just another lonely foreign man who mistook manipulation for love. 6 months passed. I didn't date, didn't travel, barely left the house. My kids worried but didn't know how to help. Carlos invited me to Houston for Christmas. Sophia wanted me to visit her in Mexico City. I declined both. I just sat in my house, existing. One afternoon, I was going through my bank statements. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see the damage in black and white. $80,000 for land, $120,000 for construction, $60,000 in additional costs, $15,000 for May Noi's fake surgery, $25,000 for Somchai's exaggerated repairs. Smaller transfers here and there, gifts, dinners, her phone, her laptop, $453,000 total. I'd lost $453,000 in less than a year. I started thinking about Tanaka's words, about not dying here full of shame, but I was full of shame. I was drowning in it. I'd ignored every warning sign. I trusted blindly because I was desperate to feel needed, because I couldn't stand being invisible. I thought about calling Waranya, just to hear her voice, to ask if any of it was real. But I knew the answer, so I did something different. I wrote it all down, every detail, every moment, every dollar. Not for legal reasons, not to expose her, just to process it, to see it clearly. Writing helped. Slowly, over weeks, things started making sense. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't evil. I was lonely, and loneliness makes you vulnerable in ways nothing else does. Waranya wasn't a monster. She was a woman from a poor family who saw an opportunity and took it. In her world, that's survival. In mine, it's betrayal. Both things are true. Her family wasn't uniquely cruel. They were just doing what countless families do when a wealthy foreigner shows up offering money. They took it. I started therapy. A psychologist in Guadalajara who specialized in expat issues, Dr. Reyes. She was patient, non-judgmental. She helped me see that I wasn't mourning Waranya. I was mourning the version of myself that believed in second chances. The version that thought money could buy purpose. You wanted to matter, Dr. Reyes said during one session. You wanted to feel essential to someone. That's not weakness. That's human. But I let myself be used, I said. Yes, but you also gave freely. You helped a sick woman get medical care. You supported a struggling business. You built something beautiful. The fact that people took advantage doesn't erase those actions. It feels erased, I said. She nodded. I know. But you survived. You're here. You're processing. That counts for something. It did count, not much, but something. I started going out again. Coffee shops, markets. I reconnected with old friends in Guadalajara. Eduardo took me to lunch and didn't ask about Thailand. He just treated me like I was still me. Carlos visited with my grandkids. They didn't know Grandpa had gotten his heart broken in a foreign country. They just knew Grandpa had been sad and was trying to smile again. That helped. One night, I dreamed about Waranya. In the dream, we were back in Chiang Mai. She was holding my hand in that night market, but when I looked at her face, it was blank. No features, just empty space. I woke up understanding something. The woman I loved in Chiang Mai never existed. She was a performance, a role Waranya played because it worked. And I fell for it because I needed it to be real. The real Waranya was probably a complicated woman dealing with poverty, family pressure, and limited options. She saw a lonely old man with money and did what she had to do. I can understand that now. Understanding doesn't mean forgiveness, but it means I can let go of the anger. Sometimes I still check her line profile. She changed her photo. She's smiling in front of the guest house with Somchai. The caption says New Beginnings in Thai and English. I don't feel rage when I see it. I just feel tired. That guest house will stand for years. Maybe it'll be successful. Maybe tourists will stay there, enjoying the beautiful rooms, never knowing an old man from Mexico paid for it with his loneliness. I won't get my money back. I've accepted that. But I got something. I got the knowledge that I can survive heartbreak at 68, that I'm stronger than I thought. That being played doesn't make me pathetic. It makes me human. I still live in Guadalajara. I still have my house, my kids, my memories of Maria. They feel clearer now, less painful, like I've finally stopped comparing every woman to her. Waranya wasn't Maria. She was never meant to be. She was just a woman I met in Thailand. Nothing more, nothing less. Sometimes people ask why I don't travel anymore. I tell them I'm too old, too tired. But the truth is simpler. I'm afraid. Afraid I'll meet another woman who makes me feel alive. Afraid I'll ignore the warning signs again because I want so badly to matter. Afraid I haven't learned anything at all. But most days, I'm okay. I sit on my porch in Guadalajara with my coffee. I watch the sun rise over the mountains. I call my kids. I see my grandkids. I exist. I survived. That's enough. Last week, I got a message online. Unknown number. I opened it, heart pounding. It was in Thai, but Google translated it. Hello, Kun Garrett. This is May Noi. Waranya gave me your contact. I want to say thank you for helping my family. You are good, man. I pray for you every day. I hope you are happy. I stared at that message for 20 minutes. Part of me wanted to reply, to tell her I knew about the fake surgery costs, to tell her I knew she was part of it. But what would that accomplish? She's an old woman surviving in a poor country. Maybe she didn't even know the full extent of what her children did. Maybe she did. Either way, confronting her changes nothing. I deleted the message. I deleted Waranya's contact. I deleted all the photos, not out of anger, just out of necessity. Some things you have to let go of completely or they'll poison you forever. The sun is setting now over Guadalajara. I'm on my porch with whiskey instead of coffee. I'm 69 years old. I'm $450,000 poorer. I'm lonelier than I've ever been. But I'm still here, still breathing, still figuring out what comes next. Maybe nothing comes next. Maybe this is it. An old man on a porch, remembering the woman who made him believe again and the hard lesson that came with it. But at least I'm alive to remember. At least I survived. Mr. Tanaka was wrong about one thing. I didn't die full of shame in Thailand. I came home. I faced it. I'm dealing with it. That's something. That has to be something. Because if it's not, then what was any of this for?